This is very scary. A research vessel sits anchored in the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean. The crew lowers a deep-sea camera over the side. It descends slowly, past the sunlight zone, past the thermocline where the cold begins, past the wreckage layer where the Atlantic has been collecting its secrets for centuries, all the way down to the seafloor of one of the most feared stretches of water on the planet, the Bermuda Triangle. What the camera found when it finally touched bottom wasn't a portal. It wasn't alien technology. It wasn't the ruins of Atlantis. It was something far more unsettling than any of those things, because what they found down there provides, for the first time with real physical evidence, a credible explanation for why ships and planes have been disappearing in this region for over 100 years. And the answer isn't supernatural, it is geological, it is chemical, and according to scientists, it is still actively happening right now beneath the surface. Today we are going all the way down. The legend, the real disappearances, the cover-up of the cover-up, the science that changed everything, and finally, exactly what that camera found when it hit the bottom of the Bermuda Triangle. First, let's establish exactly what we are talking about. The Bermuda Triangle is not an official geographic designation. No government body recognizes it. No maritime authority marks it on charts. It is a loosely defined region of the North Atlantic, roughly triangulated between 3 points: Miami, Florida, the island of Bermuda, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. That triangle covers somewhere between 500,000 and 1.5 million square miles of open ocean, depending on who is drawing the lines. Within that region, according to the legend that grew through the 20th century, over 50 ships and more than 20 aircraft have disappeared without convincing explanation. The stories are remarkable. Vessels found drifting completely abandoned, sails still set, engines still running, meals still on the table, with no crew and no sign of what happened. Military aircraft that stopped transmitting mid-flight and were simply never found. Ships that sent distress signals describing compass readings that made no sense before falling permanently silent. The most famous case is Flight 19, December 5th, 1945. 5 United States Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers departed Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station on a routine 2-hour training exercise. The flight leader was Lieutenant Charles Taylor, an experienced pilot with over 2,500 flight hours. Approximately 90 minutes into the flight, Taylor radioed the base. His words were disorienting. He said his compasses were not working, that the ocean below him didn't look the way it should, that he couldn't identify land. He said, and this is a direct quote from the transmission, "We are not sure of our position. We cannot be sure of any direction." All 5 bombers disappeared. A PBM Mariner search aircraft sent to find them also disappeared within 20 minutes of takeoff. 13 men from Flight 19 and 13 from the rescue aircraft. 26 people gone in a single afternoon, never recovered. These are the stories that built the legend. But here is where the story gets far more complicated. In 1975, a librarian and researcher named Lawrence David Couchet did something no journalist or author had bothered to do before him. He went back through every documented disappearance ever attributed to the Bermuda Triangle and cross-referenced them against original source material. Actual ship logs, archived weather reports, Coast Guard incident files, Lloyd's of London insurance records, Navy archives. What he found was systematic and devastating. Disappearance after disappearance had been misrepresented. Ships that sank in severe storms had those storms edited out of retellings. Vessels that disappeared hundreds of miles outside the triangle's boundaries had been included in the count anyway. Some ships listed as mysterious disappearances had never disappeared at all. They had arrived safely at their destinations, and the records had simply been ignored. The Bermuda Triangle, Couchet concluded, was not a genuine phenomenon. It was a narrative constructed by writers who selected dramatic stories, stripped them of context, and assembled them into a pattern that the original facts did not support. This conclusion was validated again in 2013 when the World Wildlife Fund conducted a comprehensive global analysis of the most dangerous shipping lanes in the world. The Bermuda Triangle did not appear on the list. NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, officially maintains that the region has no statistically unusual rate of maritime incidents compared to any other heavily trafficked ocean corridor of similar size. So is the entire thing invented? Is there genuinely nothing here? Not exactly, because here is the distinction that matters. The legend was inflated. The geography, however, is extraordinary. And what actual researchers have found in this specific stretch of ocean, both above it and beneath it, is stranger and more significant than any mythology that was ever invented to explain it. Before anyone lowered a camera to the bottom, researchers had already isolated several features of this region that make it genuinely unusual. The first is its magnetic character. The Bermuda Triangle is one of the very few places on Earth where true geographic north and magnetic north converge at the same point. Everywhere else on the planet, there is a measurable angular difference between the two. Navigators call it magnetic declination and account for it when plotting courses. In and around the triangle, that declination approaches zero. For sailors and aviators relying on magnetic instruments, this creates subtle but compounding navigational confusion. A small error in bearing held for hours across open ocean puts you far from where your instruments suggest you are. The second feature is the Gulf Stream. One of the most powerful ocean currents on Earth flows directly through the heart of the triangle, moving warm water northward at speeds reaching 5 miles per hour. A disabled vessel drifting in the Gulf Stream does not remain in place, waiting for rescue. It is carried hundreds of miles off course within hours. Physical evidence, wreckage, oil slicks, life rafts, survival suits, disperses rapidly. The current essentially cleans the scene before investigators can reach it. Many disappearances attributed to mystery may simply be attributed to current. The third discovery came in 2016 and changed the scientific conversation about the triangle permanently. Researchers analyzing satellite and sonar imagery of the Barents Sea off the coast of Norway identified enormous craters torn into the seafloor. Some measured over half a mile in diameter. The cause: sudden, catastrophic releases of methane gas from massive deposits of methane hydrate, which are frozen gas compounds buried under the ocean floor. When enough pressure and heat accumulates beneath these deposits, they rupture violently. The seafloor detonates. A column of gas erupts upward through hundreds of feet of water. The craters left behind are indistinguishable from impact sites. The critical detail: the seafloor beneath the Bermuda Triangle sits above one of the most significant methane hydrate deposits in the entire Atlantic Ocean. Which returns us to that research vessel, and what the camera recorded when it finally reached the bottom. The footage matched the Norwegian crater data almost exactly. The seafloor beneath the Bermuda Triangle is not featureless and flat. It is fractured and scarred, enormous bowl-shaped depressions carved directly into the rock. Some old enough to be partially silted over, some with edges still sharp enough to suggest they were formed recently. Recent in geological terms meaning potentially within the last few hundred years. Evidence of repeated large-scale methane eruption events directly beneath one of the world's busiest maritime and aviation corridors. Here is precisely what a methane eruption does to a surface vessel. When a methane pocket ruptures beneath the seafloor, gas rises rapidly in a concentrated column through the water column above it. When that column reaches the surface, it creates a zone of severely aerated, gas-saturated water. The physical density of that water drops dramatically. A ship caught above an eruption site does not take on water gradually and list to one side. It loses buoyancy almost instantaneously. It sinks vertically, at speed, without sending a distress signal, without launching lifeboats, without leaving floating debris on the surface. The gas column then dissipates within minutes. the ocean surface returns to normal. To any vessel arriving afterward, there is nothing there. No wreck visible, no oil slick, no explanation. For low-flying aircraft passing through the rising gas cloud, the effects are different but equally severe. Methane in sufficient concentration disrupts combustion in jet and piston engines. Instruments react erratically to the altered atmospheric chemistry. In dense enough concentrations, engines flame out entirely. The aircraft goes down without warning and without a recorded transmission explaining why. The camera also found something else at the bottom that no one found surprising, but that carries its own weight. Wrecks, dozens of them, ships from multiple centuries, from multiple nations, some identified in historical records, many not, resting silently in the dark in water so deep that conventional salvage is impossible, in a region where the current ensures that whatever sinks here stays here. Each wreck a story that ended before anyone on the surface could learn what happened. What the camera could not provide was one clean answer that explains every disappearance across every decade. Because there isn't one. The Bermuda Triangle is not a single phenomenon. It is an overlap of several. Magnetic anomaly, current, weather, and an active geological seafloor that can erupt without warning and erase a vessel from the surface in less time than it takes to send a mayday call. So the Bermuda Triangle is real, just not in the way the legend was written. It is not a portal. It is not guarded by something we don't understand. It is a region of ocean where multiple natural forces converge in ways that remain incompletely mapped and only partially understood, above a seafloor that is still moving and still releasing gas beneath ships that have no idea what is directly below them. Vessels still disappear in this region. The explanations are quieter than the legend, but if you were standing on the deck of one of those ships when the ocean became froth beneath you, with no time to understand and no way to send a signal, the explanation would not matter at all. If this changed how you see the Bermuda Triangle, hit the like button and share it with someone who still believes the old story. Subscribe to Curious City, where every street leads to a story you never knew existed. Your next discovery is already waiting. Come in, stay curious.